Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of, I don't even know, I was coming on with my podcast intro. And you guys comment below. Let me know if you guys have been listening to the Renaissance Room podcast. It's definitely something that I do when I don't really have time to create a video. So let me know if you guys like the Renaissance Room and if you're streaming. So in today's video, I kind of wanted to talk about the Black politic. So in the community sector, I posed a question. I wanted to know, has neglecting your Blackness ever aided in your upward mobility? Now, this is something that I think happens to a lot of people who don't really know who they are. And I say that because I got to get to the point. But I say that because I think when you don't know who you are, you will find yourself subscribing to a lot of things that aren't who God created you to be, right? You're Black, you were born Black, you grew up Black, your family's Black, your mom and dad are Black, you're Black, and to everybody else, you're Black. Now, this is obviously not to speak to people who are, you know, in different parts of the world who just have melanin. No, I understand that. But I'm talking specifically to Black people who do this. And I think that this, again, goes back to you not really knowing who you are as a person. And I find this around a lot of people who really lack confidence within themselves, people who have a certain part of history or who have ingested a lot of the negative stereotypes about Blackness, and they try to get away from that. And so what happens is they end up, you know, throwing those who are African American, those who advocate on behalf of Black people and social justice under the bus, because it makes them look better, it makes them feel better, and it sometimes gets them in rooms that they may feel like they have to be in. I think the best advice that I can give anybody who's a Black person and you find yourself in these spaces and you may be the only Black person in the room or whatever, which I think even in that in itself, it should be very telling to you about the realities of the world. But for whatever reason, it seems to be this thing where we find ourselves assimilating rather than just, you know, whatever. But I would definitely say that, you know, it's God who blesses you, right? And if you're in a room, if you're in a space, it's because God called you there and God put you there, and because of your hard work and because of the things that you have done, that's why you're there. You know what I mean? So for you to feel like you have to kind of start being a different type of way or being someone that you're not is very cowardice of you. And this is something that I've kind of found with some video essayists, and they talked about some of the very headstrong Black political leaders. And first off, I want to start off by saying this. One thing about me, I'm never going to turn a blind eye to the dysfunction within our community. And because of that, I want you guys to also know that I understand that Black people are not monolithic. And I think people who do feel the need to turn a blind eye or whatever, it's because they, again, subscribe to a very narrow-minded perspective about Black people and Black culture. And I think that really comes up when you don't really immerse yourself in the culture. You're not within the culture. And again, you negate your Blackness. So I'm not turning a blind eye to the dysfunction, to the connery, to the craziness, right? I'm not turning a blind eye to the very harmful politics sometimes that can be birthed out of radicalism. But what we're not gonna do, I think what's really unfortunate, let me say this. I think what's really unfortunate about a lot of the people who do speak out and speak strongly and passionately about political matters, I think that they're oftentimes turned into, like, I don't want to say puppets, but I think a lot of times they become like entertainers, right? They have no choice but to be sucked into that space because that's where the vast majority of people like reside. And I think the people who are outside of that oftentimes are just, again, in that space of negligence because they find themselves in these rooms where they're the only one, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I just think that you have to be so clear of like your version of success. You know, for me, starting out and doing everything that I do, if you look at the bio on this YouTube channel, it literally says I am sharing the things that I love. I'm sharing the hobbies, the things that I immerse myself in. So me personally, I think that you have to be so clear on like your motives and who you are as a person and what you value, because I just refuse to let views and, you know, those things like money, temptation, like make me just completely neglect everything that I'm standing on. And for the people who do that, I just want you to know, like, nobody's going to respect you, right? You may be getting more followers from a different type of demographic, right? You may be making more money, but it's just like, people like people who have integrity. You know, people like people who stand on something. People like people who have morals and very consistent morals, right? I'm not saying that your beliefs won't change. I'm not saying, you know what I mean? But it's just like I met someone who, you guys, we had went to this cafe. This person was literally going off on this white lady because I had brought my dog, and he was like, she's being racist, all this other stuff, like dogs come in this cafe all the time. I thought he was being a bit, out there. And at this point in my life, I remember he had graduated from Howard, so he was very immersed in AA Lit. He was very well-rounded, and I really respected him looking back. And I honestly felt bad because in hindsight, I'm like, I should have really had his back on that. But I feel like he was a bit out there, and he was just so passionate, right? And so fast forward, seeing this person today, and they now identify with the LGBT community, and their politic has changed tremendously, right? They actually no longer care about social justice and things like that. And I thought it was very interesting to kind of see that transition. It's not to say that people can't grow. If I was to sit here and have this conversation with you guys, I could say, oh, well, maybe he noticed that Black people weren't really supporting him. He was like, hey, I'm done with this politic. But I know that's not the case, right? The point that I'm making is that we live in a world today where people are just so quick to just kind of like be blown with the wind. And I just feel like it's so weak. Like, it just really doesn't give. Like, I feel like there's nothing wrong with changing. There's nothing wrong with growing. But I just think to be somebody who's passionate about what it is that you do, and then find yourself in a space of like, oh no, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm on to this new wave, right? That's crazy to me. I spoke about this in a short that I made today. I was like, it's very interesting how it's only the Black politic that becomes problematic. But everybody else makes their politic very known and where it is that they stand, right? Look at the Republicans, look at the LGBT community. Like, people make it, and it's in the bio, it's on the LinkedIn, you know what I mean? But when it comes to Black voices, right? Amplifying Black voices, investing in Black businesses, that's the one area that you can't be too political, right? That's the one area where you can't bring that to the forefront. And that's a problem for me. So I think, it's a matter of like obtaining your success in a level in which you're going to obtain it. I think another reason why people kind of fall off is because we kind of have this infatuation with rapid growth. And I found YouTubers, video essayists, and people who grow too quickly, which is possible today, especially if you're growing a YouTube channel specifically, because you're able to, if you can invest in the digital marketing, if you can invest in the editing and things like that, that makes the content a little bit more interactive, right? That gives your viewers something to kind of interact with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think if you're going to be someone who is going to be an educator and you're going to be in the space of video essaying, you should really focus on pouring into the content, right? You should really focus on having quality content, and that takes time, right? I think about the businesses that I'm starting, right? My startups. I think about the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm passionate about. I'm not in a rush, right? I look at my life right now. I'm 26 years old. I don't need it all today. I don't need it all today. I want to be someone who has got it, and I've got it my way, and I've took my time to build the thing that I'm really passionate about. You know what I mean? I could really care less about that. You know what I mean? Because it's going to come eventually. But my thing is like, I think to be somebody who is so obsessed with like just somebody's version of success, then inevitably everything that you are is going to shift. Everything that you're about, like, that's going to change because you're getting in somebody else's lane, and you're trying to get what somebody else is getting. And I'm not really here for that. So I think it goes back to what you value. I think it goes back to what you stand on. And I don't know, I just think if you have a firm foundation, it just tastes a little bit sweeter. I look forward to being someone who's very knowledgeable in my craft and what it is that I do. I look forward to really building a great team of people. I look forward to all of those things. So I just think that at the end of the day, being money focused is never going to be to your benefit. I think about where I am and where I've been and the skills that I've acquired and the knowledge that I've acquired, the wisdom that I've acquired. And that's so much sweeter, right? The quality connections, the quality of my work, like that is so much sweeter than just a fast track, right? I didn't even get into writing essays when I first started writing, you guys. My writing career started with poetry. Actually, no, it started with blogs. It started with me sharing my day-to-day, right? How I'm feeling today. And, I built a community in that, which was the creatives.site. And then it transitioned into poetry. And then I started, I wrote my first book, my first poem, my first poetry book, Seasons. And then I took a break. I think I was still blogging at that point, day-to-day life stuff, sharing wisdom, sharing insight. And that's right, the translation or the, matriculation. And then it became essays. Then it became, opinion pieces. Then it became columns about social justice and about the things in the real world, right? And I really preface my work on telling the truth. And that has always been my constant, right? So it's just like, when I look at my life, it's like, I'm on my path. You know what I mean? I'm not in a rush to go anywhere because I like this. I like the way this is flowing. You know what I mean? I like the way this is going. So I just think if you're really trying to build something, you really want to be here for the long haul, be somebody who stands on something. You know what I mean? Because nobody likes somebody who's just, me personally, I don't like people like that. You know what I mean? I don't get how 1 minute you're here and you're really, really focused on that, and then the next minute it's like, oh no, we ain't gonna talk about this, we ain't gonna move like that. I don't like people like that. I don't think that that's a sign of growth. I think that's a sign of shakiness. You know what I mean? I think that's a sign of, hey, I don't know who I am. You know what I mean? And I'm around these people now, so I'm adopting their ideologies, I'm adopting their philosophies. You know what I mean? So it's different. And I think to have to provide nuance and say, well, of course you don't show up in every room, right, and be one specific way, right? When you're in an interview, you're gonna have a different approach. You know what I mean? Inevitably. But I just think to be an adult and have to explain that is crazy, because you already know that. So no, I'm not gonna do that for you. But be somebody who stands on something. You know what I mean? It's okay. Take your time. Like, the beautiful thing about success is that you get your own version of it, right? You get what's for you when you stay in your lane and you do your thing and you build your craft. You know what I mean? When you start dabbling here, dabbling there, then it's no longer about you. It's about other people. It's about, how do I build this thing to, how do I keep them happy to sustain? And me personally, I just can't do that. You know what I mean? This creativity is within, right? Inspiration is within, that vessel, you know what I mean? That's the thing that creates and cultivates and so forth. So to try to twist that and make the motivation external just would be baseless. I personally have no desire to create